Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Discipline Priest in the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. And in this video, you're going to see me be impressed by yet another thing on the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. Trying something new here, obviously. Ironically, this is actually the pinnacle of what I've been impressed by so far. Some really nice changes for Discipline Priest, and I'd like to show you guys a little bit about that in this dungeon. But more so, we're going to be talking about the log that I have in the description. I think I might actually include two, I don't know, one way or the other. It's definitely going to be the log from this dungeon that we do here in the video, and we'll talk a little bit about, you know, what's really strong about Disc right now, some design changes. Basically, there's three main topics we're going to discuss. One is going to be power word shield, one is going to be damage output, and then the other one is going to be like ways that you could improve discipline in the future, okay? And like why some things that are a little bit overpowered right now that probably won't stay that way. So first things first, Discipline now has spammable shields again. This is as of the current build, I believe, the most recent build that is. So this is on March 17th that I'm making this video. I think it was the most current build. I don't know. I didn't play the Priest until just this build, and frankly, I'm going to tell you this: I haven't played Discipline seriously since Mist of the Pandaria. Now, if you watch my videos frequently, you know, in the past, especially in Legion, you would already know that I absolutely despise what they did to Discipline in not just WoD, but especially Legion. I think Legion's iteration on Disc is absolutely sad. Really destroys what they used to be about, and to the point now that like they basically lost all their niches. If you ask me, in Legion, they can still be very strong, and they have a very good raid niche, but in 5-mans, it's just miserable. It's absolutely ridiculous how silly Discipline can become, and I think that it could easily be fixed. And it basically has been fixed by doing two small things on the alpha. Number one is by giving them power word shield spammable again. As you see right there, I'm able to just spam power word shield without any detriment. Now, one thing that I can't remember very clearly in MoP, but I'm pretty sure you couldn't just spam apply it to the same target, right? You could. I think this is more like it was in Wrath, people say. In Wrath, you could just spam apply it to the same target. There was no weakened soul debuff or whatever. I think that's it, right? Weakened soul. I don't know. Again, if you guys know more about this than I do, then please leave a comment in down below there. But I'm pretty sure that's how it was. So the weakened soul typically is in the game, at least in the modern WoW, and you couldn't just spam it on people. You couldn't put it on the tank over and over and over and over again. That was kind of what the I can't remember what the spell, but where you cast and you put an absorb on him, right? That was kind of what that was supposed to be, I thought. So now it's like without weakened soul, it feels like they're just really in an interesting place. But one way or the other, even if weakened soul does creep back into the alpha, the fact that you could apply 5 shields to 5 people in a 5-man in like very quick succession without having to use Rapture is unbelievable. So now what they changed, what Rapture is, instead of doing that, instead of making it spammable, they made it so it increases the shield by 200%. This is insane. Okay, so they are really strong right now for 5-mans. Because as you guys know, in Legion Mythic Plus, the reason that, you know, Disc is at least acceptable is because they could prevent deaths that you wouldn't normally be able to prevent as a healer. Like outside of Spirit Link, you don't really have any other healer ability that is going to dramatically increase the chances that you'll survive a mechanic, okay? But, you know, power word shield spam and then power word barrier, they would do that. But now, with Rapture as it is, and it's being such a short CD still, if I see, you know, Herja about to do her big AoE blast, I can literally just hit Rapture and shield somebody for like half their health. And then if they take the damage while Rapture's still up, I could do it again. You know what I mean? It's just insane. So this class just got a massive upgrade, in my opinion, because of this change right here. This is the #1 change that I would have liked to see, and I did see. And I am very interested in Discipline again. Like, I think if it went live as it is right now, which it definitely will not, I will absolutely be playing Discipline as my main alt. I probably would play it over another tank at this point because I loved Discipline in MoP. Obviously, they're still missing a lot of core MoP. The reasons I loved MoP, #1 was, of course, how strong their damage was, which we'll talk about in a bit. But besides that, the other things I really liked about it in MoP was the damage that, or the ability that split your health with the target. I think that was one of the best abilities a healer could ever have in a 5-man. Obviously, no longer in the game. I think it's a PvP talent or something now. And then the other big problem is their lack of AoE damage. But for Discipline, they do actually have, I think it's a pretty competitive tier. It has the Purge the Wicked or whatever, the dot like that I currently have right now that spreads when you use, when you use Penance on the target with the dot. And then they have Halo and Divine Star in that same tier now. Now, I can't exactly remember what or why you wouldn't be able to get Halo. I think currently the biggest problem with those spells is that they're weak. I think they're overly weak. And I know Halo is a big problem in Legion dungeons because it'll aggro things really easily, so you have to use it very carefully. But if they make those spells appropriately strong like they were in MoP, Disc Priest can actually put out a substantial amount of damage damage in dungeons is what I'm trying to say. And that's a really big deal, because right now my second biggest complaint with Discipline is that compared to other healers, they don't do enough damage. Now, this is a very insuccinct test, very incomplete, okay? But after playing a couple different healers on the alpha and playing as a Discipline Priest for a while, they do considerably more damage than any other healer. Of course, we're like scaled down, we don't even have all our stuff yet, so this is silly for me to even be saying this, but this is number 2. The number 2 reason why I'm pretty happy about Discipline Priest, they seemingly have increased the damage they're going to do with relativity to the rest of the group, and that's a big problem. I mean, one way or the other, even if they buff or nerf healing damage outright, like all healers, Discipline is still, if not the lowest, one of the lowest healers in the whole game. And that is just so silly. I just don't understand why it's like that. I mean, they're meant to be a healer who basically does, a bunch of healing through doing damage, and now they don't do any fucking damage. So, like, they did that because they didn't want Discipline to turn back into exactly how it was in MoP, where you would just bring multiple Disc Priests. They would basically equate to damage dealers, and then they would be able to use overpowered shields and stuff. So they were really wary about MoP Disc Priests creeping back into the game. Let's put it that way. I think it's time to move past that. Blizzard's, they know what they're doing nowadays. They know that if things get out of control, they could change it in the middle of the expansion, stuff like that. It doesn't have to be like it was in MoP, where they stayed so overpowered for the entire expansion, even after a couple nerfs after the first tier. So anyway, what this does for 5-mans is it really improves our position. The whole reason that I feel Wow. The whole reason I feel that they're relatively weak is because they don't do very good damage, they don't have very good snap healing, and they struggle to keep up with the other healers in terms of utility. The utility problem, that's never going to change. They gave them back Power Word, or no, what's it called? Blessing of Fortified, whatever, like the health buff. They gave them that back. But other than that, it's pretty much just mind control. You really don't have any good utility as Discipline, even, no matter what expansion we're playing. Even back in the old days, their only utility was that they could do good damage, and now that is no longer a utility. Every healer can do good damage. So what you just saw right there, that was a pretty important thing. That's going to be the third thing we talk about. Right now, Mindbender, and really a lot of things that do melees seem to be really overpowered, like in proportion to the rest of the damage. So you kind of just saw it there. Everybody was low health. I popped Mindbender, and like he did 2 melees and healed everybody to full. Now the reason that's happening is because melees, like on everything, appear to be just like a significantly higher portion of our damage than they ever should have been. I'm not actually going to get behind this. This is pretty foolish, but I wish I had Mindbender up for that, because you'd be really surprised at how much damage, how much healing it can actually do through its damage. But anyway, I don't know if this is a bug. I don't know how to rate this, but currently Mindbender is the key to damage on the alpha, and I assume it will not be the key to damage on the alpha in the future. But as of right now, if they do keep this thing where, like, if for some reason, so basically, let's describe the situation. The situation is that every melee does like as much damage as actual spells now, and I don't know if this is intentional or what, but like if I play my Blood Death Knight, my top damage is a melee. It's the amount of melees I do more damage than any other spell, which I gotta believe is stupid. I don't think that's gonna happen that way. I'm not really sure what to say about that, but regardless, that is the biggest thing. I had it up there. I wish I used it. Anyway, I don't use it very well is the reason I'm bringing it up in this video. I do not use Mindbender very well at all. Yet you'll see the log is still pretty good, even without Mindbender. But look through the log and look for times when melees happen, and you'll see just how much damage that spell does. I mean, it's a freaking 3-minute CD. It's like a CD that you don't even have up for most of the dungeon. Yet its melee damage was still like higher damage than Purge the Wicked and stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's really interesting. And like I said, this is this way for everybody. I mean, you could look at the other damage dealers in our group too. Look at the Monk. Look at the Warrior. They're like among their top damage, certainly if not their top damage, will be will be melee. And it's the same way with Paladin too. Paladin, been playing that a lot as well. Judgment is really overpowered right now, and that's still struggling to do more damage than melees. So this may actually be an intentional change, and the reason I think it may be, and I haven't brought it up this far, but I think it's important to discuss, is because if they are doing this, it's going to make, I think it's going to heavily balance the whole disparity between melee and ranged. But it's going to make, like, you know, your time away from the boss that much more important. So I don't know, it's really going to change the way how the game is played, if you ask me. Like, the fact that a ranged damage dealer and a melee damage dealer are doing equal damage currently on the alpha, but melee's damage is like at least like 30% their actual auto attacks, and mages, you know, they don't have any auto attacks, it's all just spells. It's a really interesting thing. I don't really know what to say about that. And you know, even if it doesn't go on to affect Discipline Priest, this really makes Mindbender an insane cooldown, one way or the other. I mean, it's already there, kind of meant to be like a little bit of a burst DPS thing, but more so, I might assume the mana is the real reason you're going to use the spell, right? Like, that's typically what you would do. But now that it does this much damage, it's like actually a huge burst DPS CD. And that was a problem that I've always had with Discipline, since MoP especially even, really. They never really had that, like, you know, like if you bloodlusted, what else are you going to do, you know? There was power infusion, still in the game, relatively strong, I suppose. I haven't really tried it on the alpha yet. But like the rest of their spells, they do very consistent damage. But compared to, say, like, especially Holy Paladin in Legion, they don't shine, you know what I mean? There's nothing that they can do that's really useful. And especially now with the artifact being lost, that the power that spell has for DPS, really a very potent DPS spell. And without that, Discipline is obviously going to lose a lot. So I don't know. That's pretty much all I have to say on the actual class itself. I'm not really sure if I missed anything, but yeah. So like things like Radiance. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the other stuff actually. So Holy Word Radiance is actually exactly the same as it is on Legion. I feel like the amount of mana it uses is a bit disproportionate, but it still applies, you know, multiple stacks of penance, like across the 5-man, hits all 5 people, whatever. But it has 2 charges and costs a ton of mana, and it only puts it on, like, I think it's 60% of the total penance that you would know. I'm sorry, the total atonement is, of course, what I mean. So yeah, that's a big, I mean, that's good for 5-mans. I think that's the main reason it was changed. I think that was changed in like 7.2.5 or something like that. It was somewhat recently. I haven't played my Priest pretty much since 7.1, so I'll go like a good 2 years without playing Priest. So, of course, if I miss anything, please let me know. But yeah, I think that's going to be really good for 5-mans. It's a nice little snap adjustment. Like, however it works in raids, I don't know. But the real big thing here is that plea is no longer in the game. So if shield, Power Word Shield is how they fill, you know, basically how they apply atonement, then I think that's just way better. I think that's a better system overall. I thought plea was really, I'd never liked plea, and I think it causes a lot of confusion about what to do as a spec. Like, especially if you're not like super competitive. I think plea looks like a really bad, like a really baity spell. Like, what do we do with plea? You know what I mean? Because it starts off so low mana, it heals for such little. I think it confuses a lot of people, and I just think it's unhealthy for the spec. I really do. I don't like plea at all. It looked like it was going to be cool in the Legion Alpha. I was actually pretty excited for plea. But yeah, now looking back on it, it's so silly. If it actually healed for a real amount, I think that would be better. But I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Like I said, I don't play I don't play them at all. Basically, I haven't logged on my Priest in years. But I was seriously, I was very interested in them in MoP. So I've always kind of kept them in the corner of my eye. But unfortunately, recently they've just not been fun to play at all. So as they are currently, you know, Shield doesn't actually even cost that much mana. I think it costs about the same amount as, oh god, this is gonna be embarrassing. I already forgotten the name of the spell. Shadowman. There we go. Yeah, it costs about the same as, you know, as your other heal, and it doesn't really cost any more like the damaging spell. So Smite is like, it does, I think it does say like 1k, and Penance does maybe like 6k or something like that. I think that might be right. But Penance obviously has a 9-second cooldown, and it costs about, I think it's like maybe twice as much mana as, actually it might be more like 5 times as much mana as Smite. Smite is really cheap now, and this was something I've heard a lot of people say to discredit Discipline in dungeons, was that if you just did the max DPS that you could do by smiting constantly, you would actually be out of mana very quickly. And I don't necessarily know if that's the case. I guess maybe what they're talking about is like you're just wasting mana for damage, but I don't agree that you're ever wasting mana for damage. But regardless, one way or the other, Smite seems very economical. It does do a lot of my damage, but you know, it's mostly because it's spammable, so easily spammable, especially with Bloodlust. And I definitely don't make a good use of penance. My biggest problem on the alpha here, guys, is not having weak auras. I've become so dependent on tracking CDs of short CD abilities with weak auras that it's like to the point where I honestly can't function. It's really bad with Prop Pally because there's so many resets of things. But Discipline 2, like I don't even realize that penance is up because I'm looking somewhere else on the screen. The only way I can know it's up is by looking at the spell, right? I don't think there's any other way to track it natively. I'm not sure. If there is a way to track that natively, or if anybody knows of a way to keep the combat log on even when I close the game. Like right what happens now is every time I crash the game, the combat log shuts off and I always forget to turn it back on. Luckily I've become more astute on this and stop making this mistake, but yeah, it's become a real problem when I'm trying to log dungeons because we have to constantly log out to fix this mouse bug. Luckily this dungeon, it didn't happen to me, so we got pretty lucky there. But anyway, other things, I guess the warrior's doing a lot of damage if you look at the log. Arms warrior looks to be really bombastic. I don't know. There's a lot of inconsistencies with DPS right now. In the beginning, it seemed like everybody was doing about the same damage, but yeah, you could tell that they have a lot to do in terms of tuning classes. But anyway, Discipline is really good. I really like where they're standing. I like the whole idea here. You know, Penance on the move still feels really good. I think they're going to be a really good dungeon healer. The problem is they still don't bring any real utility. Mass Dispel doesn't really help. The Mind Control is kind of interesting. The fact that they could, Mind Control one of the mobs. There's a talent that allows you to Mind Control and still play your class, which is really cool. I like that a lot. Really, the only utility they're going to end up bringing is the shielding, and we don't know as of yet if they're going to try to, because they've already mentioned changing the tyrannical situation, so you know, maybe the bosses aren't going to just one-shot you anymore like they do in the higher keys. But who knows? We'll see. We'll see where Discipline shakes out. Like I said, way too early to be deciding that. All I know is I definitely enjoy it. So I don't know. That's everything. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, hope you enjoyed and hope you're enjoying the changes to Discipline. Hopefully, we don't see in a week or two that they revert the making Power Word Shield not spammable again. If they do, everything I said in this video is going to be like if they did that tomorrow, I would completely pan disc again. Like I don't know. Without this, I feel like that is the #1 reason that I would enjoy them. It makes them play a lot better in 5-mans, and it makes them a lot stronger thanks to the Rapture change. So that's pretty much where I stand on that. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.